and welcome to In Depth. I'm Teena Jha. India has had strong civilisational links with Saudi Arabia that are rooted in history. Today, both countries share a mutually beneficial partnership in a number of spheres, from trade, security and defence to strategic partnership. In 2010, Saudi Arabia identified India as a strategic partner. India was just one of the 8 countries with whom the Gulf country intended to deepen partnership in political engagement, security, trade and investment and culture. Saudi Arabia is the key pillar of India's energy security, a source of 17% or more of crude oil and 32% of LPG requirements in the country. In terms of trade, Saudi Arabia is India's 4th largest trading partner, with bilateral trade worth $27.48 billion during the financial year 2017-18. For Saudi Arabia, India is a huge investment destination. To further strengthen this mutually beneficial relationship, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman made a brief visit to New Delhi. Today in Depth, we focus on this maiden visit of the Prince to India, the key agreements that India and Saudi Arabia have signed, and the larger picture of the India-Saudi relationship. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's visit to India follows his high-profile visit to Pakistan at a time when relations between India and Pakistan are at an all-time low over the Pulwama terror attack. But experts see it as an interesting balancing act by the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince, who flew back to Riyadh after his Pakistan visit for a standalone trip to India. Although a brief visit, the Crown Prince held extensive talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also backed India's fight against terrorism. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman started his 2-day visit to India on 19 February. He was received by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the airport, a gesture that signifies the importance India attaches to relations with the powerful Gulf country. In Delhi, the Saudi prince was accorded a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, where he inspected a guard of honor. Ahead of bilateral talks with the Prime Minister, Prince Mohammed bin Salman spoke about the admiration he had for the Indian Prime Minister. He described Modi as his elder brother. The visiting dignitary also spoke about the historical links between India and Saudi Arabia, underscoring the contribution made by lakhs of Indians in the overall development of Saudi Arabia.
Represent around 80% of the Arabian Peninsula. It goes to thousands of years of history, even before history is written. So the relation between India and the Arabian Peninsula, it's in our DNA in Saudi Arabia.
Adding a new dimension to the historical ties, India and Saudi Arabia signed 5 agreements. These are in the areas of investment, tourism, housing and information and broadcasting. Further, to consolidate and diversify the partnership between the two countries, Prime Minister Modi and the Saudi Crown Prince held extensive talks on areas of mutual interest. These range from trade and investment, energy, defense and security to nuclear and space, civil aviation, renewables, counter-terrorism, community welfare and regional challenges.
आज 21वीं सदी में सऊदी अरब भारत के सबसे मूल्यवान स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनर्स में है। ये हमारे विस्तृत पड़ोस में है, एक करीबी दोस्त है और भारत की ऊर्जा सुरक्षा का महत्वपूर्ण स्रोत भी है। हमारे ऊर्जा संबंधों को स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप में तब्दील करने का समय आ गया है। दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी रिफाइनरी और स्ट्रेटेजिक पेट्रोलियम रिजर्व में सऊदी अरब की भागीदारी हमारे ऊर्जा संबंधों को बायर सेलर रिलेशन से बहुत आगे ले जाती है। हम अक्षय ऊर्जा के क्षेत्रों में अपने सहयोग को मजबूत करने पर सहमत हुए हैं। हम इंटरनेशनल सोलर अलायंस में सऊदी अरब का स्वागत करते हैं।
हम समझते हैं कि भारत में जो अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं वो 100 बिलियन से ज्यादा हैं और हम चाहते हैं कि हम सऊदी अरब के साथ मिलकर इन्वेस्टमेंट्स को दोनों देशों के लिए फायदेमंद बनाएं।
In the wake of the Pulwama terror attack, both leaders agreed there is a need to increase all possible pressure on countries supporting terrorism. Prime Minister Modi called the Pulwama attack a cruel symbol of the scourge of terrorism and sought punishment for the terrorists and their backers.
पुलवामा में हुआ बर्बर आतंकवादी हमला इस मानवता विरोधी खतरे से दुनिया पर छाए कहर की एक और क्रूर निशानी है। इस खतरे से प्रभावशाली ढंग से निपटने के लिए हम इस बात पर सहमत हैं कि आतंकवाद को किसी भी प्रकार का समर्थन दे रहे देशों पर सभी संभव दबाव बढ़ाने की आवश्यकता है। आतंकवाद का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर नष्ट करना और इसको समर्थन समाप्त करना और आतंकवादियों और उनके समर्थकों को सजा दिलाना बहुत ही जरूरी है। साथ ही अतिवाद के खिलाफ सहयोग और इसके लिए एक मजबूत कार्य योजना की भी जरूरत है ताकि हिंसा और आतंक की ताकतें हमारे युवाओं को गुमराह न कर सके। मुझे खुशी है कि सऊदी अरब और भारत इस बारे में साझा विचार रखते हैं।
The Saudi Crown Prince did not mention the Pulwama terror attack, but said terrorism and extremism are common concerns. He also promised that Saudi Arabia will extend all possible cooperation to India and other neighboring countries to deal with terrorism.
एक्सट्रीमिज्म और टेररिज्म की बात है जो हमारे कॉमन कंसर्न है। हम ये बात बताना चाहते हैं भारत को बताना चाहते हैं कि हम आपके साथ हर तरह का कोऑपरेशन करेंगे, चाहे वो इंटेलिजेंस शेयर ही हो और न सिर्फ भारत बल्कि सारे जो हमारे आसपास हैं सबके साथ मिलकर काम करेंगे जो हमारे आने वाली पीढ़ियों के लिए रोशन भविष्य को सिक्योर करेंगे।
External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj also called on the Saudi Crown Prince during his brief visit to India. The leaders discussed ways to add momentum to strategic dimension in various fields, from trade and investment to defense and security, as well as regional cooperation. The maiden visit of the Saudi Crown Prince to India came at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The Prime Minister had invited him during the bilateral meeting between the two countries on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Argentina last November. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. The relations between India and Saudi Arabia have only strengthened in the past several decades. The diplomatic ties established soon after India became independent have become much stronger now, with Saudi Arabia becoming India's largest oil supplier. Here's a look at diplomatic and strategic ties between India and Saudi Arabia. Diplomatic relations between India and Saudi Arabia were established soon after India gained independence in 1947. This was followed by high-level visits from both sides. In December 1955, King Saud bin Abdulaziz visited India after being invited by India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. Both countries agreed to shape their relationship based on the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. Soon afterwards, Nehru visited Saudi Arabia in 1956. The visit of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi to Saudi Arabia in 1982 further strengthened bilateral relations. In 2006, the visit of Saudi King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz as the chief guest of Republic Day celebrations made him the first Saudi monarch in 51 years to visit India. The Saudi king signed the Delhi Declaration. It was the first such bilateral document ever signed by a Saudi king and provided for a reliable, stable and increased volume of crude oil supplies to India through long-term contracts.
5 or 6 years ago, we invited the King of Saudi Arabia, King Abdullah, to be the chief guest for our Republic Day parade. And this honor is only given to very distinguished statesmen and very important leaders who are friends of India.
During the reciprocal visit by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh to Saudi Arabia in February 2010, Saudi Arabia literally rolled out the red carpet, shifting from the protocol of traditional green carpets. The Riyadh Declaration signed during the visit raised the level of bilateral engagement to strategic partnership in the realm of political ties, economy, security and defense.
Saudi Arabia is a very important country for India for several reasons. It is the largest country in the Gulf. It has 2.3 million Indian expatriates working in the country, whose remittances run into billions of dollars. It is also, I think, the biggest exporter of oil to India. Plus, it is a member of G20. It is the biggest and by far the most important member of the Gulf Cooperation Council.
In April 2016, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Saudi Crown Prince Salman bin Abdulaziz during his two-day visit to the West Asian nation. During the visit, a crucial MOU on cooperation in the exchange of intelligence related to money laundering and terrorism financing was signed. Other agreements included further boosting ties in trade and investment, security and energy sector.
2016 में सऊदी अरब की मेरी यात्रा के दौरान हमने अपने संबंधों को विशेष रूप से ऊर्जा और सुरक्षा के क्षेत्रों में कई नए आयाम दिए थे। आपसे अर्जेंटीना में 2 माह पहले हुई मुलाकात के परिणाम स्वरूप सुरक्षा, व्यापार और निवेश के क्षेत्रों में हमारी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के सार ने नया विस्तार लिया है। मुझे खुशी है।
However, India's strategic ties with Saudi Arabia have been affected by the latter's close relations with Pakistan. The Saudi prince signed $20 billion in investment deals with the country. Saudi Arabia has often endorsed Pakistan's stance on Kashmir. Saudi Arabia's close military and strategic ties with Pakistan have also been a source of strain. Saudi Arabia has also long been a source of financial aid for Pakistan.
In the long run, he seems to believe that India will be more important to him. Because, as I mentioned, the economics of it, India's economy continues to grow at a fairly rapid pace, and we're definitely a huge importer of oil now. The future of Saudi Arabia's economy in many ways is still tied, will be increasingly tied to India. Pakistan, however, is an old traditional relationship. They've had a very close security relationship. Pakistani troops have served in the Saudi Arabian military, are very close together. In the present struggle between between Iran and Saudi Arabia, Pakistan has sent troops to Saudi Arabia.
However, with Saudi Arabia's strong condemnation of Pulwama attack and its growing ties with India, many believe that the West Asian country is contemplating a change in its outlook towards Pakistan's Kashmir narrative. With inputs from Astha Kulshresht, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. India and Saudi Arabia enjoy cordial and friendly relations reflecting the centuries-old economic and socio-cultural ties. The 2.8 million plus strong Indian community in Saudi Arabia is the largest expatriate community in the kingdom and is the most preferred community due to their expertise, sense of discipline, law-abiding and peace-loving nature. The contribution made by Indian community to the development of Saudi Arabia is well acknowledged. Our following report focuses on the trade and economic relations between the two countries.
The Indian expatriate community, from construction workers and service staff to senior professionals and technocrats, has been an integral part of the UAE's development story. The 2.7 million strong Indian community is the largest expatriate group in Saudi Arabia. Across the Emirates, UAE-based Indian merchant families and industrialists have become major investors. They have built companies that feed emerging markets from Dubai or Abu Dhabi. Together, they sent remittances of over $11 billion annually. The kingdom also facilitates Hajj pilgrimage to over 175,000 Indians every year. Major reason why Saudi Arabia is an important for India.
The complementarity is that Saudi Arabia needs these expatriate workers, although it is a very big country, but its population is not a very big. See, so it requires Indian manpower, and I must point out that Indian expatriate community in Saudi Arabia is the largest single expatriate community in that country. They have millions of workers from other countries also. Single largest is India. Okay. Secondly, they see India as a growing market for future sales of oil as well as investment, both. Because India is at present the fastest growing, largest economy.
Indo-Saudi economic relations have shown remarkable growth, with bilateral trade registering a threefold increase in the last 5 years. Trade and commerce has long been one of the strongest components of the bilateral relationship. Today, Saudi Arabia is India's fourth largest trading partner and eighth largest export market. It is the source of 6.35% of India's global imports. For Saudi Arabia, India is the fifth largest market for its exports, accounting for 7.55% of its global exports. Bilateral trade was $27.48 billion in the last financial year 2017-18, making Saudi Arabia India's fourth largest trading partner, recording 10% growth compared to 2016-17. Saudi Arabia is also the key pillar of India's energy security, accounting for 17% or more of crude oil and 32% of LPG requirements of India. Recently, the Saudi Aramco, in partnership with ADNOC of UAE, agreed to partner Ratnagiri Refinery and Petrochemical Project Limited, a joint venture of $44 billion.
World's largest growing importer of oil. So Saudi Arabia is already one of our major providers of oil. They hope to lock that into the future. They want to invest in our petrochemical sector. They want to build refineries. They want to build pipelines. They want to be able to have a share of our public sector, of our oil and gas sector, so that builds a relationship between their supplies and our consumption. So while people have mentioned that he had a bunch of MOUs with Pakistan of $20 billion, the single Ratnagiri refinery, the one refinery that Saudi Arabia is looking at to build in Maharashtra, is $44 billion all by itself. That's just one project they're looking at. So the economic complementarity is very strong. We are maybe trying to build a renewable energies.
The Saudi Arabian General Investment Authority has issued 426 licenses to Indian companies for joint ventures or 100% owned entities till 2010. These are expected to bring in a total investment of $1.6 billion in Saudi Arabia. These licenses are for projects in diverse sectors like management and consultancy services, construction projects, telecommunications, information technology, pharmaceuticals, etc. Moreover, several Indian companies have collaborations with Saudi Arabian companies and are working in areas of design, consultancy, financial services and software development. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia is the 46th biggest investor in India, with investments from April 2000 to February 2013 amounting to $40.93 million. Security cooperation between the two countries also increased. During Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 2016 visit, both nations signed an MOU on cooperation to exchange intelligence related to money laundering and terrorism financing. New Delhi says Riyadh has shown greater understanding of India's terrorism-related concerns and has agreed to work with India in countering the global menace. Cooperation in the defense sector will continue to be an important area of India-Saudi relations. An MOU on defense cooperation was signed in 2014 during the visit of Crown Prince Salman. Both sides are exploring the possibility of elevating this engagement with joint production and joint exercises, in particular, joint naval exercises.
We both want stability in the Persian Gulf. We get 70% of our oil and gas from the Gulf. We want to ensure that that flow continues. And while we are trying to stay out of the battle between Iran and Saudi Arabia, India has an interesting situation. It has a very good relationship with Iran. It has a good relationship with Israel. And it has now a new good relationship with the UAE and is now developing one with Saudi Arabia. So we have the unusual ability, one of the few countries in the world that is on good terms with almost all of the major players of the Persian Gulf.
Other areas of interest for joint collaboration are fertilizers, food security, infrastructure, renewable energy, etc. In a recent meeting of Niti Aayog-led delegation with their Saudi counterparts, areas like information and communication technology, healthcare and pharmaceuticals, electronic and manufacturing facilities, and housing were identified as potential areas of cooperation. Saudi Arabia itself is undertaking large development projects including Smart City, Red Sea Tourism Project and Entertainment City, in which Indian companies will look to participate. The countries are also looking for greater collaboration in civil aviation. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia has been making global waves since June 2017. He took the lead in restructuring Saudi Arabia's economy by introducing Vision 2030, the country's strategic orientation for the next 15 years. Let's look at King Salman's reformist heir, who is today counted as the world's most influential leader in an ultra-conservative kingdom.
The 33-year-old Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, is one of the most influential leaders of the world. Born on August 31, 1985, Mohammed bin Salman is the eldest son of King Salman of Saudi Arabia. After graduating from college, Mohammed bin Salman spent several years working in the private sector before becoming a personal aide to his father. He worked as a consultant for the Experts Commission of the Saudi cabinet. On 15 December 2009, at the age of 24, Mohammed bin Salman entered politics as a special advisor to his father when the latter was the governor of Riyadh province. In October 2011, Crown Prince Sultan bin Abdulaziz died, and the current King Salman began his ascent to power by becoming the second Deputy Prime Minister and Defence Minister in November 2011. He then made Mohammed bin Salman his private advisor. Colloquially known as MBS, Prince Salman is currently serving as the country's first Deputy Prime Minister and is also Chairman of the Council for Economic and Development Affairs, Chairman of the Council of Political and Security Affairs, and the Minister of Defence. He has been described as the power behind the throne of his father, King Salman. MBS was appointed the Crown Prince in June 2017 following King Salman's decision to remove Mohammed bin Nayef from all positions, making Mohammed bin Salman heir presumptive to the throne. Prince Mohammed's ideology has been described as nationalist and populist, with a conservative attitude towards politics, with someone who has a liberal stance on economic and social issues. On November 4, 2017, the Saudi press announced the arrest of Saudi prince and billionaire Al-Walid bin Talal, a frequent English-language news commentator and a major shareholder in City, News Corp and Twitter, as well as over 40 princes and government ministers at the behest of the Crown Prince on corruption and money laundering charges. In March 2018, Prince Mohammed bin Salman referred to Turkey as part of a triangle of evil alongside Iran and Muslim Brotherhood. He also voiced his support for a Jewish homeland. This is when Saudi Arabia has never recognized Israel. This is the first time that a senior Saudi royal has expressed such sentiments publicly. Crown Prince Salman has also significantly restricted the powers of the religious police in the country. He established an entertainment authority that started hosting comedy shows, professional wrestling events, and monster truck rallies, events so far unheard of. In February 2017, Saudi Arabia appointed its first woman to head the Saudi Stock Exchange. In September 2017, Crown Prince Salman lifted the ban on women drivers. He also legislated against some elements of Saudi Arabia's wali system, also the topic of a decades-long campaign. And in February 2018, it became legally possible for Saudi women to open businesses without a man's permission.
We will retain the royal monarchy. The royal family of Saudi Arabia will retain power. He's not going to allow political parties of any real form to arise. But he wants social reform. He may not want political, he wants social reform. He doesn't see why people can't have music concerts, why they can't have art, why they can't, the Arab world has a long history of music and art and culture, all of which has been eradicated or suppressed by the Wahhabis. He wants at least some, not necessarily equal rights, but more rights for women. He says women should work, women should be able to drive. These things that he feels that need to be changed. And he wants to bring in new technologies and concepts into Saudi Arabia. To some degree, he's looking at Dubai and places like that and saying maybe we can model ourselves something closer to that.
Currently, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is making waves globally with his Vision 2030 plan, which aims to boost Saudi Arabia's economy, generate equal rights for women, introduce an arts and culture scene, and ultimately make Saudi Arabia a tourist-friendly environment. It details goals and measures in various fields, from developing non-oil revenues and privatization of the economy to e-government and sustainable development. Despite praise for his strides towards the social and economic liberalization of Saudi Arabia, international commentators and human rights groups have been vocally critical of Mohammed bin Salman's leadership and the shortfalls of his reforms program. With inputs from Astha Kulshresht, Bureau Report for Rajya Sabha TV.
So that's it from us in today's edition of In Depth. We'll be back same time tomorrow with a focus on some other important subject. You can also watch our episodes online on YouTube and Twitter and get back to us with your feedback and suggestions. Thank you very much for your time.